I'm WG, and in this video you get the entirety of TIPHERA's kit that was just revealed, starting off with the fact that she is obviously our next in line support. More specifically, she is a order controller. So what is TIPHERA all about? What can she do? Is she any good for you? How about we find out together? So here we go. This is the core, the bread and butter of TIPHERA. It is the archetype skills. There's archetype circle, archetype square, and archetype triangle. The circle heals and gives you AP. The triangle one gives you shield and a damage boost. This damage boost is up to a 300% multiplier to the next hit of the next attack card, meaning this should not apply to multi-hits. So for example, if you get that to 300%, a 9 with the Hue Extreme is going to jump from 1200% all the way to 4800%, or by 300 plus 3600%, right? So that is that. And then here, so we have heal draw, but specifically can only draw archetype cards, heal AP, and shield damage boost. That is what these archetypes do. Keep that in mind. Next up we have her kit. So let's quickly go through the base cards first, then we'll talk about ultimate, then we'll talk about the rest, but these should for the most part already be known, right? So she does defense-based damage, right? She's a defense-based character. She has heals on her, heal on her skill card, but if you potential her, she's actually going to go to a heal plus shield. So it's going to be around 80% heal, 80% shield instead of just a heal. Then we have Quantum Seed. Quantum Seed is going to heal you and create 2 archetype cards in the draw pile. It is random what it creates, and it also is random what it draws. So it's going to be any of these, either square, triangle, or circle. You know the deal, right? So then next up we have Form Convergence. You draw 2 archetype cards and you double a random effect of those cards for 1 turn. What that means is that it either doubles the heal or the AP. So it would be 120 heal or 2 AP. It's either or. Here it would be 120 shield or 60% damage boost. And here it would be 120 heal or draw 2 archetype cards. So you're gambling on which effect is getting the double, the duplication. Then Creation and Destruction is straight up just defense-based damage, shield, and healing, all in just one singular card. And it has a harmonization effect, meaning that it is going to be that when you have cost equal to this card's cost. So if you have 1 AP left, this card costs 1 AP, you play it, the harmonization effect triggers alongside of it. A dual creation is then when 2 archetype cards are created, create 1 identical card in the discard pile. I would assume it's going to be a random one of those instead of, so one of those is going to also go into your discard pile, and you'll see there is no turn limit, meaning you could do this infinitely. Obviously, only as many times as you can create an archetype. Then we have Event Horizon. Event Horizon is unique, meaning you can't copy it, and it has Form Upgrade. Form Upgrade is going to increase one of her values by 100% up to 3 times the limit of Form Upgrade. That means is when you use any of these archetype cards, right? You use any of these archetype cards, you're going to double any of these effects. So the Event Horizon is going to go from a 1 AP, 1 draw, 40% increase card to a potentially 2 AP, 3 AP, 4 AP, or 4 draw, or 160%. So it's going to be split between those, but in the extreme cases, you would have a 1 AP, 4 draw, 40%, 4 AP, 1 draw, 40%, or 1 AP, 1 draw, 160%. So that is how Form Upgrade works. Alright, before we forget about it, obviously, ult time. Archetype Resonance. Select and create 1 archetype card, so you can pick which one you want. And the next 3 times a ego skill is used, you create an additional archetype card. The question is, does it create an additional card of the one you've selected or a random one? Not entirely clear. Decreases the cost of the next ego skill used by 3. Important here is, during the live stream, they were only able to show the E3 version, meaning that increases the additional creation count to 3, so it should be 2 before, and the same is true for the ego cost reduction. So the skill allows you to select one archetype card. For the next 2 times an ego skill is used, you get an additional archetype card, and you also decrease the cost of the next ego skill used by 2, making this ego skill effectively 3 cost. So you can actually combine it with another potential character skill, or more realistically combine her with a partner skill. So that is the ego skill. And that is, keep in mind here, that is by 3 times. So you can combine or get 3 in between those with, again, RNG of what gets hit. So let's start with the Quantum Seed upgrades. Quantum Seed, this one's straightforward. More healing, and you create 3 archetypes and you draw one of them, so you create 1 more. This one right here, though, is it allows you to select one and create 1 in hand and draw a pile each. So you can, for example, select the archetype you want, be it the damage boost, the AP, or obviously the archetype draw, and also you're going to get one of them in hand and one of them in the draw pile. Then Quantum Seed, this one is where gambling gets a little bit more focused as well. You draw 1 card. This is not going to be a archetype draw. It's just flat out draw. It is a 0 cost 1 draw card. Very important, makes it very strong. And then it is going to create just 1 archetype, but you need to predict which it is. And if you are correct, you're going to get the other ones in the draw pile. Meaning, so let's say you predict it's going to be triangle. If it ends up being triangle, you get both square and circle as well. If not, you're only going to get the one that it was. So let's say you predict triangle and it turns out square, then you only get the square one. Next up, you get 3 cards in the draw pile. You draw one of them and you apply the retain effect 2 times on 1 random card of this unit in hand, which, for example, works right here. Retain, draw 1 archetype card. So there will be a bit more retain focused ones, but keep those in mind based on the fact that she has a retain activation card in her Quantum Seed. And then this Quantum Seed on the right, it's going to be unique, and it allows you to create 1 archetype card, and when your AP hits 0 for the first time in a turn, you create 1 of each archetype card in hand and draw pile, meaning that you're actually going to create 6. You're going to create 6 archetype cards. You get 1 archetype draw, you get 1 AP, and you also get the 30% damage bonus. So I feel like already getting 1 Quantum Seed, the unique version, seems like a must-have, and then maybe, I don't know, the gambling version. Quantum Seed is definitely the bread and butter when it comes to creating these archetype cards. Now, Form Conversion. Form Conversion is what allows you to draw a multitude of archetype cards rather than create them, and you see that doubles a random effect of those cards for 1 turn, meaning every archetype card you draw with this is also going to have one of its effects randomly duplicated, be it the shield or the healing, or obviously AP damage boost and AP damage boost and the draw, right? So I think we don't need to talk about these archetypes anymore. I think they're in your head now. So next up, it's just you have the ability to draw 4 of them, and also you can select and exhaust 1 exhaust card in hand, which can be used to, for example, get rid of Charon cards, but more specifically might just be best off being used on a 9 hue. Then Form Conversions in the middle. At 0 cost, it has retain. You can change all archetype cards into your hand into a different archetype, meaning that you can go from triangle to square circle, or from circle to triangle square. You get the deal, right? Then, the other part is when you retain this card, and it also has retain, you draw 1 archetype card, making this a bit of a archetype draw engine, and also a last resort to change your archetype effects. The real question is, how does this interact, right? How does changing the archetype interact with the boost buffing? Who knows? And then here, this one's also very much interesting, and it is select and exhaust 3 exhaust cards from all cards. Meaning you can pick from the draw pile, graveyard, draw pile and the graveyard, like wherever these cards are, so long as they are exhaust cards, you can exhaust them with this form of conversions right here. It also has retain, so it stays in your hand until you want to use it. And for every card that you do exhaust, you draw one. That is incredibly big, and that is because, for example, if you have a Charon who creates futilities and then you use form conversions, that means you not only pay 1 AP to exhaust 3, getting 3 AP of value, you also draw 3. This card is incredibly strong. Form conversions, the final one, retain, you draw 1 archetype card and you repeat this one until you draw the same card in a row. So if you have 6 different cards in your draw pile, you're going to draw all of them so long as it isn't square, square, or triangle, triangle, circle, circle. But it caps out at 6 of these draws. A lot of stuff, huh? Now, creation and destruction. A lot easier, a lot more straightforward. It's going to be more damage, more shield, more healing, same harmonization. For the middle one, it's a big base damage at 660%, and when a card is exhausted, decrease cost, meaning you could play a bit more as like a sub DPS with exhaust synergy for that card. Here it's retain with more values, and every time you retain this card, keep in mind there was a retain trigger card in her deck already, and you can also always just bring a Orlea, right? So here it's just 192, 400, 400, and at 4 times retaining, because you duplicate it by 100%, means you get 200% shield, 200% heal, and 1000% damage if you are able to retain it 4 times. Then for the middle one right here, when your AP hits 0, you create a creation and destruction card and you decrease the cost of that card by 1 and apply exhaust at once per turn. So what you're getting is this version, the 144, 96, 96 double on harmonization. That is what you're getting, that's what you're getting with the creation version. And then right here, creation and destruction. This is again a big gamble card. So you deal 180% defense-based damage for each cost of this card. But every single time you exhaust a card, you randomly change the cost of this card from 1 to 9. What that also means is that you can try and find a way to exhaust so many cards so long until you hit, let's say, 7, 8, or 9 cost, and then play a card to activate this card for free, right? Like any activation effect is going to allow you to skip the AP, or you just have enough AP to play it. Why is this so good? That is because it's 180% base damage multiplied by the cost of the card. So at the lowest, it's going to be 180% at 180% at 1 cost. And the top end is going to be 1620%. It's kind of nasty, isn't it? Now the real question is if the card itself inherent has some damage. Like there's a chance that it's going to be 1800%, or like for example, what happens if it had 0 cost, which is obviously can't really, but you could try cost reducing it. We have to see. But big gamble. Big payoff. If you can somehow activate this card, it's even more base damage than what 9 has, which is kind of insane. Now, for the last one, the upgrade cards, dual creation. This one is, let's see, what's the difference here? Yeah, I think it just gives it initiation. And it says when 2 archetype cards are created, you create 1 identical card in a discard pile, meaning it's, once again, just going to be one of those, this time just with the initiation keyword. For the second one, you need to create 3 archetypes, but you create the identical card in your hand, and you also apply retain to the card. For the middle one, we have when you create the archetype square, or when you activate it, you create a different archetype card in this card pile. So what this pretty much is you won't get the draw as much. So it's kind of like a guarantee of, okay, if you use this to draw something, you're at least going to get either the AP or the damage increase card as kind of like your reward, payback. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, right? But that's how dual creation works. But keep in mind, here, dual creation, the fourth one. Then the third one. The fourth one is a skill card. You create one of each archetype, and you create one of the next archetype card. Exhausted, also interesting. It's a skill card that is unique. So even though it changes from upgrade to skill card, it still stays unique. But yeah, you create one of each archetype card, and you create one of the next archetype card exhausted. So you could, for example, create the AP card, use the AP card, get another AP card. Not too bad. And then dual creation, the final one. When an archetype card is moved to your hand, meaning you draw it through whatever means, you can duplicate that card and remove a random effect. So if you draw yourself the, well, let's once again talk about the triangle one, because it's very powerful. Or not the triangle one. If you draw yourself the circle, it's going to become 2 circles, meaning you'll not only be able to play a lot of archetype cards, but also you have a chance of getting multiple AP, because it's every time it's a 50-50. So if you draw a square, a circle card, you get a heal and AP, and the duplicated card can either give more heal or give AP, though the card that you actually draw yourself is not going to be subject to those changes. So at the minimum, you're still only going to get the circle card, but the other duplicate of it is either going to be heal or AP. So even more gamble. Now, let's talk about the big ones. Potential and duplicates. So, first off, this potential is really huge. Unique stat potential. If TIPHERA's defense is greater than 300, which is very, very easy to reach, at the start of the battle plus 10% critical damage of allies. Allies also includes herself, so it's a team-wide 10% crit damage buff. If you keep in mind, Orlea already has a 6% crit chance team-wide buff, so with the two of them, you get 6% crit chance, 10% crit damage. So the unique stat is pretty much a no-brainer and makes her, yeah, a lot more valuable. E1. Change the max stack count event of the form upgrade. So that means that right here, you'll be able to upgrade these things 4 times instead of 3 times. So now the final counts will be up to 5 AP, 5 draw, or 200% damage increase of the first hit of the next attack card used. And keep in mind, because it's a unique card, yes, to a degree the effect is lesser, but also you're making your only use of the card more valuable. The E1 is pretty good, right? Like, the E1 is pretty good. It's pretty hard to argue against it. If you wanted to, you wouldn't be wrong for going for a TIPHERA and getting an additional one if you like her playstyle. It's pretty strong. Now, the Awakening Memory 2 is a little bit more complicated. When an archetype card is activated, so played, you gain that shape's effect. When shape effect stacks to 3, you create a card that consists of the stacked shape effects. And it's going to be the following. So, if you create or if you activate a circle card, you get the 180% heal. If you activate a triangle card, you increase the damage amount of the hit of the next attack card by 30%. And if you activate a square card, you get the draw for the archetype card. But it's not going to be like this. It's based on which order you play. So if you, for example, play out three circles in a row, this card is going to have heal 180 3 times. If you play out triangle 3 times in a row, it's going to have increasing the hit by 30% 3 times. And if you play out square 3 times in a row, it's going to be 3 times the draw effect. So decently powerful. The big one though that makes this not a absolute must get is the fact that this effect can only be activated once per turn. So you're only ever going to get it once per turn. And what's important to note here is while these are pretty much at the same power of their respective archetype cards, there is no AP gen. So you can't abuse this by playing out triple circle and hoping to get 3 extra AP, meaning you'd most likely try to aim for the damage boost or the draw instead of just the heal. So yeah, again, as a reminder, the E3 is going to give you the the extra creation of the archetype card, and then also the extra cost reduction by 3 for the next ego skill. Now E4 on the other hand, when TIPHERA's archetype card is used, you gain power of archetype effect. The power of archetype effect is quite a mouthful. It gives you 5% multiplier to all attack cards of allies, 5% multiplier to all order attribute damage amount of allies, and also 5% to all defense based damage amount of allies. So it's going to be attack cards, which applies to everyone. Then this one is going to only apply to order characters, and the final one is only going to apply to defense based characters, meaning that characters that match all of these criteria are only 3, right? It's going to be TIPHERA, Amir, and then obviously 9. Then again, it is still a upwards of, if you meet all conditions, 15, otherwise just a 10% multiplicative. But there is a second part to this, and that's the fact that it has 2 stacks, meaning you can get at maximum a 30% effect, and then depending on how many conditions you meet. So at the lowest it's a 10%, then if you meet 2 conditions it's 20, and if you meet 3 conditions it's 30% multiplicative coming from the E4. The E5 as usual is 6% multiplicative to all base values of basic cards, unique cards, and neutral cards. And then right here the E6, TIPHERA's unique cards receive damage amount increase effects gained from archetype triangle. It's like, this one is by far the most wonky, the most wacky. We really don't know what it does, right? But let's have a look at it together, right? See, maybe you understand exactly what it means, and you can let me know down in the comments below, right? But the damage amount increase effects gained from the triangle cards now goes from 30 to 35%, and now stacks at 350 instead of 300. The big thing here is, but are changed not be consumed. So there's two ways for this to work. Either you using a triangle card no longer makes it an exhaust card, or you using a triangle card gives you a permanent damage increase to all attack cards, which is very unrealistic, but there is a chance based on the wording. So the way this seems to work is that pretty much all of a sudden the triangle cards are losing the retain keyword, the exhaust keyword, which is certainly an interesting change. Honestly, E6, I don't know. But recommendation wise, get the E1. Get the E1. It is possible to miss out on the E2, like it's good, but by no means is it crazy because it doesn't have the AP variant. If you go that far for support, obviously E4 is going to be team-wide damage increase, and E6 honestly remains to be seen. So, that brings us to the partner. Tiana, an Imperial Marshal who supports a commerce from the shadows. Passive, Star in the Darkness. You increase the assigned combatant's defense by 8 and then 16 at max copies. When the assigned combatant creates 3 exhaust cards, which is very easy on her, you increase the damage amount of the next attack card of allies used by 15%, up to 2 stacks, but that also means you would have to create 6 exhaust cards, and when you create 6, you increase the damage amount of the next attack card used, just the next singular attack card used, by upwards of 30% or 60% at max dupes. So let's just think about 60. And then this one is the big one. Like the third one is the one that's like meant to sell you on her. When the assigned combatant, so when TIPHERA has used a shield, a heal through order cards, which is very easy to reach with her archetypes, 6% crit chance increase to allies. So that means with the potential, you get 10% crit damage. With the partner, you get 6%. And then hypothetically with an Orlea as well, you get an additional. So you'll have 12% crit chance, 10% crit damage. Whereas then the last one, the ego skill, is you draw 1 exhaust card, and the next 2 times an ego skill is used, which works quite well together with the ultimate, as you'll see, because it also reduces the cost conveniently by 3 or by 2. And then that is the next 2 times an ego skill is used, draw 1 exhaust card, decrease the cost of the next ego skill used by 1. So yeah, for some reason, they also decided to include ego skill spam in TIPHERA's kit. So both in her ultimate and on her partner, you have the ability to reduce the cost of ego skills used while also gaining an effect for doing so. But really, it's all about how much do you care about 6% crit chance. If you don't care about the 6% crit chance, she's not a must pull. If you care about the 6% crit chance, she pretty much is. Keep in mind, she is a order controller partner, so there's nobody else that can use her besides TIPHERA at the moment. And then once again here, these are like the recommended team comps at the end. None of them are anything too crazy. I don't think we need to go super into detail, but keep in mind retain cards. Keep in mind the ability to exhaust cards for like someone like a Charon, and the ability to exhaust something like a Hugh. And then obviously the fact that you're massively boosting the first hit of the next attack card used. So any character with a big base damage and low hit count can take advantage of this. So the most prominent candidates would be Charon, Haru, Nine, TIPHERA herself, maybe Naja, but probably actually Rin. Rin has some pretty good zero cost drawing slashes and otherwise options to potentially take advantage of this. So this is everything we know about TIPHERA. Peace.